Hi, good day. This is Ma'am RJ, your teacher in COM 1103, your class communication theory. So, for this discussion, we will be having critical theories, especially Marxism. So, our agenda for our discussion are as follows. First, we will be discussing the critical theory genre. We will be reviewing what is our knowledge about the critical theory tradition. I'm sure you can recall in Module 1 that there are 7 traditions in communication theory. So, we will be recalling our knowledge with that. Next, we will be looking at the authors or the proponents of Marxism and the theories and ideologies behind it, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Afterwards, we will be looking at the definition of Marxism. And fourth agenda, we will be discussing the principles of Marxism. Lastly, it's vital that we connect the link between communication studies and Marxism. So just a disclaimer regarding our discussion. Our discussion does not intend to brainwash you or encourage you, recruit you towards a communist ideology and the extreme ends of communism. I hope you understand where I'm going through with this disclaimer. And of course, we have to look at the discussion in a more objective and critical point of view. All right, so once you are ready, let's begin our discussion. All right, let's begin with the first agenda by reviewing and recalling our knowledge about critical theory genre, or also known as critical tradition, as one of the 7 traditions in communication theories. Remember, the focus of critical theory is more on the issues of inequality and oppression. It does not simply intend to observe, describe what is happening, as you can see on the third bullet. The point is to criticize, and afterward, it intends to bring about a certain change, especially towards those who are oppressed. And there is this certain idea about critical theory that there is unjust distribution of suffering. And also, in line with that, there is also unjust distribution of the riches, of wealth, and of course, the positive things in life. Hence, the idea here is not simply equality, but more of equity. The theories that can be related to critical theory genre are as follows. Of course, we have Marxism that this is what we'll have in our discussion. Apart from Marxism, we also have Foucault, our next discussion, and then we have feminist studies and of course gender studies. So I hope you can already recall what are the ideas under critical theory tradition. Moving forward, let us get to know who are the proponents of one of the theories that is under the umbrella of the critical tradition, which is Marxism. So let's begin first with the man who is very much known because of the title itself is linked with his last name. Karl Marx, okay, or also known as Karl Heinrich Marx, that this is his full name, and you can see on the right side of the PowerPoint that is his photo. And Karl Marx is a German philosopher. He's known to be a critic when it comes to politics. He's a journalist. He's a historian, sociologist, and of course, he's main contribution mostly will be in the socialist revolutionary ideologies. In connection with that, Karl Marx and his fellow contemporary Friedrich Engels, okay, who is also a German philosopher, and they have similar ideologies, similar interests. Same with Karl Marx. He's also a critic when it comes to politics, economy, historian, and he's also a socialist revolutionary. Just to give you further context when it comes to the relationship, professional relationship, and connection of Karl Marx and Engels. Marx was born 2 years earlier than Engels. Marx is 18 was born in 1818, and then Engels is 1820. So if you will think about it closely, they can be considered as contemporary German philosophers. Hence, they came up with this idea or set of ideas which we are now discussing and labeled as Marxism. Okay, moving forward, let's now try to define what Marxism is. Actually, most books forward that there is no one definite, no one single paragraph that can thoroughly define and encapsulate the ideologies of what Marxism is. But let's try to look at it on certain perspectives. Based on your reading and in the aspect of communication, Marxism is a bigger umbrella that has something to do with related theories that are challenging the dominant order of society. During the time of Marx and Engels, they have observed that the industrialization age, brings about good effects when it comes to the development and the quality of life of people. However, there are certain things that needs to be considered, such as the arrangement of people in the society. There are what we call as classes in the society. Marx and Engels provided the idea that there is what we call as the dominant class, and where there is also what we call as the dependent class. And over time, historical materialism, if you're able to read the reading, over time, the specific examples of the dominant class simply changes, like the feudal lord to the capitalist to the owner, and those who are dependent class also changes. Those who are proletariat, and in capitalism it becomes the working class. So basically, the idea that Marx tries to establish is that there is a class and inequity in the society or in the status quo, where he was philosophizing Marxism ideology during that time. In addition, focusing on the right side of your visuals, Marxism is very much related when it comes to the idea that economy is the base of all social structures. In the reading, it specified which aspect of economy which can be considered as the base. They focused more on the human labor, the skills of the working class. That can be considered as the base of the superstructures that we have in our society. What do we mean by superstructures? We have various superstructures such as politics, religion, education, culture, so on and so forth. But basically, the very foundations of these superstructures are the labor, and more value and focus should be given to the working class. So in a nutshell, perhaps, if someone will ask you, what do you know about Marxism? Perhaps you can focus on these two concepts. However, this does not encapsulate, as I have mentioned earlier as a disclaimer, this does not thoroughly encapsulate the broadness and the variety and evolution of Marxism ideology. Okay, after trying to define Marxism in a nutshell, let's try to look at the what we call as the broad principles and the assumptions of the Marxism ideology, or various Marxism theories under the critical tradition. So I hope you are still following me when we discuss while we are discussing the principles of Marxism. Going to the next slide. Okay, so we have here principles of Marxism. So on the left side, you will see here dialectic materialism, historical materialism. We also have the theory of surplus value as elaborated by Karl Marx. And then in relation with that, there is what we call as the class struggle. And we will be focusing more on capitalism and alienation in Marxist theory in the following discussions and following slides that we will have in this recorded discussion. So the concepts on your left, okay, basically I have grouped them as the observations by Karl Marx, descriptive observations by Karl Marx and Engels during their time, or what is happening in their status quo 1800s after the Industrial Revolution. So Marx mentioned that there is the rise of capitalism. In relation with capitalism, there is the rise of the surplus value, class struggle, and alienation. And then he looked at this concept using dialectic materialism and historical materialism. So we can, we can label the terms, the principles and assumptions on the left side of your screen as more of the thesis. Okay? Thesis, if you were able to read about the dialectic materialism. So this is the thesis. This is what is happening during the time of Marx and Engels. Now, on the right side, okay, we have additional 4 principles, which are revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat. We also have the idea that religion is an opium. So I'm sure you've read of this quotation numerous times. A lot of, scholars in the academic field likes using this term whenever they are discussing about religion. It's a totally different discussion, but definitely interesting. And then third, on the right side, we have the communist society. And last, there is what we call as the idea of freedom according to the Marxist theory. So later on, we will be focusing on the first, which is the revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat, and then freedom, the concept and definition of what freedom is according to Marxism. So on this right side, these are more of the proposed ideas of Karl Marx. Given his observation, and he explained it through the concepts on your left side, on the right side, these are his proposed antithesis. This is what should happen according to Marx. Alright, so that I organize it this way so that you can have an idea, sort of narrative on how is Karl Marx coming from, or where is Karl Marx coming from with his ideology of Marxism. Okay, so let's now move forward with the following slides. We will be discussing capitalism, alienation, revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat, and of course, freedom in the Marxist theory. Alright, so let's begin discussing the details of the concept capitalism. I'm sure you've heard of this numerous times, but let's look at it under the lens of the Marxism theory. Now, you will see here that there is a photo on the right side, and the title of the photo, it represents the pyramid of the capitalist system. So basically, Marx is trying to establish that there is inequity. Okay, there is a division among the capitalist and the working class. But in the pyramid, you will see here that there are various levels, various classes that is happening or that is present in the capitalist system during or after the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. In the photo, it emphasizes the struggles of the industrial workers, which are the people on the bottom part of the pyramid. And then the quality of life gets better as you progress along the upper part of the pyramid. And the idea here is that, we have to give value, and there is a great importance when it comes to the labor of the industrial workers. In the reading, it discusses the difference between the terminologies of value and price. Price simply looks at the monetary market and monetary profit of a certain industrial product. However, when we look at the value, okay, value, there is beyond the cost of materials, beyond the cost of processing. But we have to look at the idea that human labor, the skills of a person, of an industrial worker, should be given more premium rather than just giving them equal look when it comes to materials, when it comes to the processing. We have to provide importance when it comes to the skills of the industrial workers, given the fact that they are considered as the base or and the foundation of the superstructures in a certain society. In relation with that, even if they are considered as the base and the foundation, the ironic part here is that if you will look at the photo, there are people who are struggling, there are people who are dying. You see on the lower right side, there's a child lying and, who is starving, almost dying. All right, so there is a struggle, okay, and this struggle comes from the idea that there is exploitation of the proletariat, exploitation of the industrial workers. They work hard, they work themselves even up to death, okay. However, the pay is minimum, the pay is unjust, and those who profit bigger are those who are simply establishing and investing, since they are the owners of a certain industrial company, since they're the ones who has the capital, they inherited the power. But those who are under the pyramid, they have to work their I'm about to say a bad word. They have to work their ass off just to, get better, at least close to a decent quality of life. However, during the Industrial Revolution, it didn't happen. That's why it ignited the philosophies and ideas of Marx and Engels, especially towards the appallment when it comes to capitalism. There is a great polarity when it comes to the dominant class, the capitalist, the owners of the land, and to those who are the dependent class. You don't have a land, you don't have money as a capital, you have to work. You have to use your body, you have to use, whatever skill that you have. And in that case, you are considered under the dependent class. Okay? So that's the idea about capitalism. Moving forward, let us discuss the concept of alienation this time. This is still connected with the idea of capitalism and classes in the society and the inequity when it comes to the society that Marx is trying to describe during the Industrial Revolution. Alienation happens when there is what we call as the dehumanizing effect. The humans is considered less of a person, less of a human being, okay? But it's more of simply being a laborer, okay. There is dichotomy, there is a separation when it comes to thinking a person as a human, but you just simply look at that person as an industrial worker, and in that way it's more of a dehumanizing factor, and it leads to the idea of alienation. In the reading, there is discussion and various levels of what alienation is, and we will look at it in 4 different levels. First, man is alienated from his own product. There are cases wherein, certain industrial workers, even up to our time right now, there are certain workers who doesn't have a say on the product that they will produce, doesn't have knowledge on why they need to produce the product. All they know is that they just have to do their work. That's it. That's your job description. You don't need to think about it. Just do it. We don't need your thinking. We don't need your creative ideas as a human. We just need your skills and your labor. That's a sense that in that way, that's alienation. In addition with this one, with the first level, man is alienated from his own product. There are cases wherein certain workers do not even know what it's like to enjoy the product that they are producing. There was this story about certain coffee farmers in Africa. I just forgot. It was a reading way back in college, more than 10 years na yun. The coffee farmers were working their bodies all day to produce coffee beans. But there was this interview wherein a certain coffee farmer hasn't even tasted the coffee bean, or the juices, or the product that he is working on. Okay, so that's in that way that can be considered as alienation. Man being alienated from his own product. It's the ironic part. You're doing it every day. You know the processes, but you don't know what it feels like to be on the other end of the processing processing that industrial product. You just simply do it, labor about it, but you don't get to look at, feel, taste the product that you are working on. And that is alienation in a nutshell. Second level, man is alienated from nature. What nature are we talking about here? Okay. The work of a man, of the industrial worker, okay, they just simply do what they have to do. It's innate for us human to think, right? Looking at it in an anthropological perspective, it's innate for our brains to evolve to think. However, given the circumstances of the industrial revolution, of the industrial production, you don't need to think. You just need to work. That's the very idea of a man being alienated from his work. I believe I have mentioned this already with the first level. So there is a sense of routinary and mechanization, okay? You do the product, you try to imagine as if you are in a factory. You have a certain task to do. You do it every day, and to a point wherein you are doing it every day, you don't need to think about it. It becomes an automatic response in your body. And in that way, it doesn't give you a sense of growth as a person. It doesn't give you a sense of satisfaction when it comes to your career, when it comes to your vocation. It's just simply work, labor. That's it. And that is considered as alienation as well. Third level of alienation, we have man is alienated from other men rather. It's very it's highly encouraged in the capitalist ideology, wherein the more you work, the more you will get at the end of the day. If you work extra hours, you will gain extra pay. All right, and in that sense, it provides a sense of individualistic progression, but it doesn't forward a sense of community. It doesn't provide sense of unity. Hence, there are cases wherein industrial workers are led to idea that you have to be competitive. They have this idea that it's a dog eat dog world, so you have to be better than other people if you want to progress in this world. Okay, there's nothing wrong in being not aggressive, in being assertive, but there are cases wherein certain industrial workers tend to be too aggressive than just simply being assertive. Last, we have man is alienated from himself. This is the saddest part of alienation. I thought, when I first read about this one, Communist Manifesto, I thought the first level, man being alienated from his own product, is like the sad part here. There can be the saddest part of alienation. Man being alienated from himself. Allow me to read a certain, certain captivating line in our reading. It's in page 20. It says here that his life, the realm of necessity, the realm of the idea that you need to, you need to earn money. Okay, that's the realm of necessity. It dominates the life, his life, the life of the industrial worker, and reduces him to the level of an animal existence. It's, it's like, it's sad, leaving no room for a taste of literature, art, and cultural heritage. Hence, it gives us the idea why is social science, specifically communication, our artistic, in the field of communication, our artistic output such as film, such as song, music, and other creative outputs. Okay, it's on the higher level. It's like on the higher level of the class pyramid, of the capitalist pyramid. Only those who are rich, only those who have money can enjoy entertainment, can enjoy the nice things when it comes to art and, self-expression. But if you're a lowly, I'm sorry for the word, if you're a lowly industrial worker, you don't have time to appreciate the butterfly and the flowers on the road. You have to work your way really hard just to get to where you are going. Your industrial work, you don't have time to, look at nice things in life. And it's sad, okay? Leaving us to the idea that we are a slave of the tyrannical rule of money. I guess, this one is a very classic idea coming from Karl Marx. Looking at the date that Marxism was developed, it's around 1800s, and the time right now 2000s. Over a century, more than a century, same problem, same concern is still happening. Certain people are still slave of money, whether we deny it or not. There are people that, who really works hard. You can't blame them, especially with the society that we are in right now. You have to, you can't deny that there are cases where money makes the world go around. However, it brings us to the point, the primordial idea that we have to earn money to live. Okay, and it goes in a way wherein we live for the money. So that's the very idea of alienation. When life give you lemons, you have to make lemonade. However, there are cases wherein it becomes overwhelming. That's why this story of alienation is still rampant. A lot of people are feeling burnt out, starting from the education system in the Philippines up until now. If you will be a member of a working class, I myself also feel certain way wherein, the lemons become overwhelming. All right, and that gives us a certain idea that alienation, the concept of alienation, is still present up until now. Okay, moving forward with the next slide. I hope you are still with me. It was a lengthy discussion, but I hope you are able to follow me. Just in case, if you have clarifications, if you have like thoughts that you want to share, feel free to discuss it in our platforms such as MS Teams, Canvas, and email. Now, going back with the next slide, we have here the revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat. So, with the next two slides, including this one, it discusses the proposed ideas of Karl Marx. Given the reality, the sad reality or status quo during Karl Marx's time, he has this certain idea. Okay, you don't just simply destroy the argument or the blocks of your opponent. You also have to build your argument, and these are the arguments that Marx is trying to forward under the ideology of Marxism. First, okay, there's what we call as the revolution. Now, you might want to ask, paano po ma'am nagkakaroon ng revolution? Okay, sa reading natin, it discusses that there is a probability of imbalance within the mode of production. So, the mode of production, it comprises two concepts. First, forces of production and relations of production. With the forces of production, there is what we call as means of production. These are the materials, the equipment, the money, the capital. And then the second force of production is the power, the human labor, okay? And if there is an imbalance when it comes to the forces of production, there are cases wherein the means of production wants to be increased. Okay, halimbawa with what's happening right now, there are cases wherein certain human labor is replaced or supplemented by technology. And given that one, okay, it's favorable on the end of the capitalist. However, okay, if you were able to read the reading, there's also a possibility wherein that it will, it will backfire towards the capitalist. Paano kaya yun mangyayari? So, there is this improvement when it comes to the means of production, forces of production. However, the human labor, okay, the human laborers cannot keep up with these changes. Hence, the relations in the production, okay, the relations in the production tends to build certain tension. That's why there are certain unions, okay? Naririnig nyo sa balita yung, sorry for that noise, okay? There's this union, pag-aaklas, laborers are doing rally, laborers are going against the system of a certain company. That is, and those are examples of imbalance and struggle of certain industrial workers, leading this imbalance leads to revolution. Okay, now the direction of the revolution that we're talking about here, the revolution of the industrial workers or the proletariat, the working class, it leads towards the social change. Okay, looking at the picture on your right, when the industrial workers are pushed back to the wall, they are pinned down to a certain low level, just like what you're seeing on the photo. They lash out. They struggle and they form a sense of revolution. Okay, and this revolution leads to social change, and the ideal proposition that Marx is trying to forward is that there should be classless society. So dito pumapasok yung extreme suggestion ni Karl Marx, okay? Medyo biglang, okay, you agree with the capitalism, you agree with the alienation, because it really happens. And then he came out with this extreme proposition that there should be classless society. There should be the idea of communism. You have to seize all of the ownership of certain capitalists, okay, and it can never be inherited by a family member, or the power can never be inherited, and we have to equally distribute it. Okay, ang ganda pakinggan, to be honest. It's very idealistic. However, if you will apply it in a certain society, a lot of backlash will happen. Okay, it's not as easy as saying it. It doesn't happen in an instant. There are definite arguments about this one. Okay, that's why dito nagka-clash yung idea of communism and capitalism, okay? And of course, the very idea, okay, the intention is to eliminate oppression permanently. However, the implementation of this communist idea tends to be too extreme sometimes, okay, according to a certain capitalist perspective, okay? And certain evolutions of the Marxism ideology, like Marxism, Leninism, which was used by the Soviets, and then Mao Zedong in China. Marxism has also a different version of Marxism. So, if you want to know more, I'm encouraging you to read more about this one, okay? Kaya dito na nagka-clash si US, si China, si Soviet, okay? And it's very much relatable with what's happening in our country right now. Favorability towards certain communist countries and capitalist countries. So there is struggle as well when it comes to the superstructures such as politics and even our healthcare system. Kaya related din yung vaccine, procurement, so on and so forth. Okay? I hope medyo nalayo na yung discussion natin, but let's go back with the revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat. So, with the communism, there is a proposed dictatorship, pamumuno ng working class. So, walang pagmamay-ari ang sino man, pero pantay-pantay tayong lahat. That's what Marxism is trying to forward under the idea of communism. Okay, moving forward, having established the idea with when it comes to the problem of capitalism according to the Marxism ideology, and forwarding the proposed idea of communism, there is what we call as definition of freedom under the Marxism ideology. So freedom, okay, according to Marxism, is not just simply securing the material satisfaction, not just simply providing the basic needs such as food, money for food, for rent, for the basic necessities, okay? Maslow's hierarchy of need, okay? So just the basic level. But, okay, according to Marxism, freedom goes beyond that basic level. We have to remove, according to Karl Marx, we have to remove the conditions of dehumanization, estrangement, and of course, alienation. So we have to provide a classless society under the ideology of communism. And with this classless society, we are emancipating, we are liberating the human into a better society wherein there are no dominant oppressors, there are no exploited laborers. That's the idea of freedom under the Marxism theory. Okay, I'm just putting it in a simple nutshell, okay? So that's freedom. Okay, so having discussed the concepts and principles of Marxism such as capitalism, alienation, revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat, or and the ideas of communism, and of course the terminology of freedom under the Marxism theory, let's now try to connect it with where we are right now. So most of the concepts that we have discussed are very much closer or are closer to the idea of political science, social science. And you might be wondering right now, ma'am, what is the connection of Marxism when it comes to my field, which is communication studies? So let's now go with the next slide. What is the connection, the link between communication studies and Marxism? Remember, one of the niche, one of the forte or interests of Marx is journalism. That's why nahagip ang communication field because we are under social science. First, okay, one of the roles of communication studies and us communicators that we can relate and knit towards Marxism is that there is avenue for us to expose contradictions and inequality in status quo. Okay, we are considering that media studies is a field under the communication realm. We have to be the fourth state or the watchdog of our society. Okay, fourth state, okay, the watchdog of our society. So we have to bring about what is really happening. If we see that there are contradictions, there are problems when it comes to our status quo right now here in the Philippines, it's our civic responsibility, it's our ethical right and responsibility as a communication practitioner to do that. Apart from that, okay, under Marxism, okay, we have what we call as the freedom of expression. Okay, given that we are vested when it comes to the laws in our country, when it comes to expressing our ideas, we also have to make use and take advantage of this what we call as freedom of expression. Lastly, being part of the ideological state. Okay, what do we mean by ideological state apparatus? Okay, we as communication practitioners are apparatuses or instruments in reproducing a more logical, okay, and uh, a more logical or more normal sense of the society. What do we mean by that? By that, there is this quotation wherein the media reflects what is happening in the society. However, there is debate with other communication books that, media is the one that shapes the society, or media is the one that is, massaging or dictates what should happen in the society. So, what is being shown in the media, what is being massaged through the messages that we see in the media, it either reflects the society or dictates what should happen in the society. Given those facts, we are an apparatus when it comes to reproducing what is normal in the society. Kung normal lang sa society natin ang nagnanakaw, given that what we see on Philippine media, or kung normal sa society natin na dapat maputi ka, dapat payat ka, dapat ganito ka, dapat so on and so forth, okay? And it tends to, massage the ideology of the masses. It tends to provide a sense of normalization. Okay? And the more you show it, okay, the more you expose a person with it, it tends to, normalize that kind of idea. It desensitizes the person with certain things that shouldn't be normal, given that we provide it in the media. I hope you are following my thoughts here. Being, communication practitioners under the communication field, we are considered as ideological state apparatus. Okay? So with this, we conclude our discussion. So we discussed, just to run through what happened, we discussed about the definition of Marxism. We tried to define it in a nutshell. We discussed briefly about Marx and Engels, knowing who they are and their proposed idea of Marxism and the principles of Marxism. We zoom in further with certain principles and assumptions of Marxism by looking at the ideas of capitalism, assumptions of alienation, and then discussions about the revolution and dictatorship of the proletariat, and of course, the terminology of freedom under the Marxism lens. Lastly, we connected your field, our field, communication studies, and of course, the critical theory of Marxism. So if you have any questions or clarifications, or after processing the discussion or this recorded discussion, if you have thoughts that you want to clarify, or if you just simply want to express it, you are very much welcome to do so with our platforms such as MS Teams, Canvas, and email. And with this, we will be dismissing the class. Okay, not in a Karl Marx way, but in an academic way. Class dismissed.